Hello, this is Ben Leduc-Mills. I am the Senior UX Researcher for the Create stage, and I'd like to briefly go over the results of the Q1FY23 Usability Benchmarking Study. This study was done in part to establish a benchmarking program for GitLab and also to take a very granular look at several of the main workflows and individual tasks that are done in the create stage. I'm not going to go through every slide here, but I will briefly touch on some of the themes and recommendations that were generated from this study. We did this in order to get to a more granular level than our SUS program does. So SUS is System Usability Score. So it looks at GitLab's overall kind of usability as a system, whereas usability benchmarking really takes a deeper look at what is going on during key workflows and very granular decisions during very specific tasks. And so the idea here is that this would generate very actionable insights, which it did. So the key results for this study, we looked at 20 different tasks across 4 different workflows. You can see those workflows as the rows. The individual boxes are the tasks that we performed and measured. And what we did is we gave an overall score based on the cumulative average of all of these task scores. And the create stage scored 80.3 out of 100. So that's right on the kind of borderline between fair and good. You can see sort of the red boxes here indicate poor performance, up through the darker green is a very good performance. I'll talk about a few themes that we uncovered during this process. The first one being where controls are not really close to the targets that they're operating on. So what I mean by that is that our settings and controls, basically, especially in respect to branch controls, are not really where users are looking for them. So during certain tasks where we asked users to, for instance, change who could push, force push to a particular branch, they're not looking in the repository settings first, they're looking at the branch page. And you can see a few quotes here as well as screenshots to sort of help clarify where those particular problem points were coming in. The next theme is abundant obfuscation. So across many tasks, there are places in the user interface where we're hiding information or truncating it or otherwise making it difficult for users to ascertain what it is that they're looking for. So this could be things like cutting off 2 similar usernames or hiding particular labels in the create merge requests dialog. So once again, that came up in several places. I think we can be more explicit and just more clear about certain places where we are hiding information. And finally, the third theme is, did I do that right? So there were several tasks and places where users were confused or unclear about whether or not their action had been completed or was registered by the system. So for instance, clicking on a button and not getting any sort of response from the system where it says that something succeeded, instead the button is just grayed out, or expecting a comment to show up in a certain place and it does not. So things like that. And these are important because we really want to make sure that we're communicating clearly to the users what is going on in the system. So I will go over the list of recommendations that were generated. So each of these recommendations is now an actionable insight issue with a label attached to it. And so we will be tracking how these issues get resolved in the coming months. And so let me start with the branch operations workflow. So I suggest to place the branch settings closer to where each branch lives. This could take a number of forms and has already been thought about somewhat by the source code group. I suggest adding a tooltip next to the templates dropdown in the editor, or at least somehow making it more clear what the templates function does. I think we should address the commit button in the editor. As it is right now, it is unclear to users whether or not they're actually committing or how they need to add a commit message from the editor is confusing. For merge request creation, there's a few here about changing the label user interface, and there's a more or less a bug or something happening when you change between inline and side-by-side views. At the bottom of the create merge request page, there's data loss and redirection, and it's very confusing for users. For merge request operations, we need to show more branches in the dropdown while reverting a merge request. Right now, it looks as if there's only one potential option. We should consider a more explicit design for text-only buttons, such as the one that will change your merge request to a draft. It looks like it's plain text, or a link to documentation or something like that. And so users are basically ignoring it. And we should make the controls for exiting the web IDE more obvious and return users to the page where they came from. Some of these are, as I mentioned, works in progress already. For merge request review, we should make the insert suggestion control more easily accessible. This has been suggested before. It's a really great feature, and users really like it once they discover it, but it is not easily discoverable. We should clarify the difference between start a review and comment now. These two buttons side by side really confused a lot of our users during the study as to what the difference between them was, when they should use each one, etc. And we should either make the difference between comment and start thread obvious and elevate the visibility of those controls, or eliminate start thread as an option. Users simply, most of the time, didn't find start thread, and when they did, it wasn't really clear what the difference in functionality was between those two things. So I want to go over briefly how to read the slides. These are the slides for each particular task. So first of all, you'll see that an overall score, this is out of 100, and basically combines the different metrics that we collected into a singular number that represents the overall score of the task. This is a brief overview, giving a little bit more insight into perhaps why the task performed as it did, or some sort of deeper insights about particular groups and how they performed. The little blurb up in the upper right is the study label and the exact directions that were given for the task. So you can see exactly what the users were directed to do. The completion square here is the number of participants out of 20 that successfully completed the task. The severity score is based on the scale that we use at GitLab for issue triage. So basically, the higher the score is, less severe. So you want to get a high score here. And this is basically judged on how difficult the user found the task to complete, but as judged by the researcher. Whereas CES, so this is the customer effort score. This is a score that the participant gives based on how easy or difficult they found the task, and this is out of 7. And then finally, the time on task is simply just the amount of time from the start of the task till they completed it. So the notes and quotes section here has quotes from participants that sort of highlight some of the common problems or interesting observations that pertain to this task. And the pain points here will connect to screenshots to provide granular insights in areas of observed difficulty related to the task. So just for an example here, let's take a look at how each of the workflows are reported. So this is a branch operations workflow. We give a sort of overview slide of how the workflow sort of performed as a whole. So for branch operations, the workflow score is 82. You can see the majority of the tasks here either did good or fine, with a few exceptions. Generally, the metrics here fall into like the fair or major category. And then we go on to sort of the recommendations that I went through earlier, and then a slide on each of the particular tasks. So this should look familiar from these how to read the slides that I just talked about. And so you can see, if you click through, you'll see the scores and the quotes and the pain points for each of the tasks. So briefly, I just want to go straight to the acknowledgments here and really give thanks to a lot of folks who helped make this project as it is. First of all, everyone on the UX research team was super valuable in their collaboration and insight and feedback. I'd specifically like to thank Adam Smolinski, Christy Linville, Lauren Evans, and Anna, Erica, Pedro, and Caitlin. Thank you so much for all of your support and making this hopefully a very useful program and project for GitLab. So thank you very much. That's it for now. And again, I welcome feedback and any further comments or questions. Thank you so much.